Welcome back everyone, this is J7Jace bringing you another FFT video, this time on all the rarest missable items in the game that are limited in quantity, and a few can even be missed if you go past a certain point or don't have one of the many requirements. Just a disclaimer, if any of these items get broken, stolen, or if you fail to get them, I do recommend resetting as you might never be able to get them in your save file unless you have some kind of access to a save editing or modding tool, which is sort of cheating.
It's cheating! It's cheating!
Now these will vary across all versions of Final Fantasy Tactics, so I'll go into details of the equipment and I'll also show you how to get these items as well. This was a hard video and list for me to do as there are 3 versions of the game. I had to capture all the game footage and coming up with an order was tough, but let's get started. The first item for my video is the Zeus Mace or Mace of Zeus staff. You can get 2 in the PS1 version and 3 in both versions of War of the Lions. You can find a Zeus Mace on this tile right here in Midlight's Deep on the 3rd floor, the Hollow. It can also be stolen from Clishan in one of the last fights in the game, but this is kind of pointless as you can't return to the world map. For War of the Lions players, the last way to get a Zeus Mace is from defeating Bremont and Lionel's new Liege Lord, the second battle. This staff can only be found in the single player story and is one of the better staves, although I really question its 2PA as I highly don't recommend meleeing with any magic users in most cases. Next on this list would be the Kaiser Shield and Venetian Shield. In the PlayStation 1 version, you could only get one of these in Deep Dungeon. To get Kaiser Shield, you can get it on the 4th floor of Deep Dungeon, aka the Valkyries or the Catacombs. For Venetian Shield, it's on the 9th floor called Horror or the Interstice, right on this tile. Just make sure you land on this tile with the character who has moved by an item and a lower bravery stat. In both versions of War of the Lions, you can get one more of each from the Disorder in the Order side quests. To unlock it, you need to have Agrias in your party, finished all the battles at Malone in Chapter 4, so defeating Dystark's full-on blood brother Zalbag. Then head to Zeltenia for a cutscene where you will see Queen Obelia for the last time. From here, head all the way back to Garland, head to the tavern, and read the rumor Disorder in the Order. When you are ready, head to Brigand's Den, and 2 of the enemies here will have the Kaiser and Venetian Shield, and a bunch of other rare items. I recommend using Balthier and learning his plunder abilities, having teleport to get up to the top, and to also KO Evilus's next top model as she can wreck the enemies. Agrias and the enemies won't ever turn into crystals, so don't worry if you accidentally KO someone. If you can do Rendezvous on the PSP version, you can get these shields from treasure chests. Just do the more difficult missions and be at a higher level. Because you can only get 1 of these shields in vanilla, and 2 in most cases in War of the Lions, I consider these some of the rarest in the game. Next is a rare clothing piece, Ninja Gear. In War of the Lions, you can get 2 of these in the single player game, in Disorder in the Order, and on the 6th floor in Deep Dungeon, the Palings or Tiger, on this tile right here. On the PSP version, if you have access to multiplayer, you can gain more in Rendezvous, but because in most cases, you can only have 2. And there is only 1 in the PlayStation version, so this makes it one of the rarest clothing in the game by far. For this part of the video, all these items are one of a kind in the single player part of the game. A few can be obtained in Rendezvous if you missed it, and I'll point out which ones of course. So that means only PSP players can get more than one of these. For my longbow lovers, the one of a kind bow in single player is the Perseus bow. It can be found in Midlight's Deep on the 8th floor, aka the switchback on this tile right here. You can only get more than one of these in multiplayer, making it one of a kind in the single player mode. Next, the Ego Blade is a one of a kind ninja sword in the single player story as well, of the PS1 version of FFT, the PSP version, and the mobile version. You can get it on the 5th floor of Midlight's Deep, the Oubliette on this tile right here. You can get more in Rendezvous on the PSP version, however it's quite rare from my experience as I've only gotten 4 and I used to play Rendezvous quite a bit. Next, these 2 are only available on War of the Lions. It's a gun and clothing, which I'm going to pair together, Raz Aljathai and Mirage Vest. There's only 1 in the single player game each and you can get it from Balthier when you recruit him. You can get Balthier after the fight with Melidel in the free city of Bravenia in Chapter 4. Immediately visit either Garland, Golan, or Lasalia. Head to the tavern, read the Rash of Thefts rumor. Just a note, you only need to read this rumor once. After, go to Dorter and visit the tavern there. Read the new rumor here, a call for guards. Try to leave Dorter and you'll get into a battle and cool cutscene. Ramza starts off a bit more forward, so just be a little careful, but there shouldn't be any issues. After the battle, you have the option for Balthier to join. He is one of the best characters in the game because of his abilities, built-in safeguard, stats, and he comes with the Raz Aljathai and Mirage Vest. On the mobile version, or if we can't play multiplayer on the PSP, it's one of a kind. If you have access to Rendezvous mode though, you can find more of these in treasure chests in some of the harder missions at a high level. Next, this accessory can be found in all versions of the game, the Invisibility Cloak. There is only one in the main story, and it can be found at Mount Germanus on this tile right here. However, in the PSP, it can be found in multiplayer as a reward at the end from treasure chests. Just make sure to reset your game if it gets stolen, broken, or if you don't find it when treasure hunting, as it's a very rare item. Arguably the best robe or piece of armor in the game, especially in vanilla, is the Lordly Robe or Robe of Lords. It's one of a kind in vanilla, mobile, and in the PSP version in most cases. It's incredible as it gives auto protect and shell, plus 2 PA and 1 MA, so don't miss out on this. It can be found on the 8th floor in Midlight's Deep on this tile right here. But what if I told you, you can get more than one of these in multiplayer? In the Rendezvous mission Brave story, on the 10th and final battle, it can be stolen from Balmafra, and you can keep repeating this mission to steal it from her over and over. It's just time consuming and difficult, as this is probably the hardest battle in Final Fantasy Tactics history. For these items, I'm considering them a total collection, so here it is. This set of armor was a huge badge of honor back in the day, and it was so unique. If you guessed it, yes, it was the Genji armor set. In the PlayStation 1, you can only get the Genji shield, Genji helm, Genji armor, and Genji gauntlet from Elmdor in this one-time battle. There are many different ways to go about stealing from him and the fight itself, but I like completely knocking out the assassins and their Ultima Demon forms first. And to have 108 gems on everyone to protect you from his vampire, as well as auto potion with X potions in stock to heal when he uses Muramasa. I like to use Orlando to take out the 2 assassins, Beowulf for chicken, a dual wield knight, a monk with attack boost and steel, and lastly Ramza with metal. Once the 2 assassins are taken care of, try to get chicken to land on Elmdor. This will drastically reduce his brave, so blade grasp will be less likely to go off. Try to land speed break with your knight, steal with your monk from behind or the side, and try to steal Genji's shield first, so the evasion won't be as bad when you steal the rest of the equipment. And then have Ramza use Yell on your monk so he or she can get in more turns for speed and increased steal success rate, and have Ramza heal other party members when needed. This can take a while as it's up to RNG, but it's a way to steal all his equipment. And this is the only time in the PS1 version you can ever get this equipment, so I recommend grinding and then going for the Genji gear, and the Masamune is also something worthwhile. Sadly, in War of the Lions PSP and mobile port, you can no longer steal anything from Elmdor, but you can get the Genji armor after the first battle in Lionel's new Liege Lord. If you miss it here, it is possible to get all the Genji set from treasure chests in the later Rendezvous missions, but these were still quite rare from my experience. On mobile, you can only get the single Genji armor after defeating Elise in Lionel's new Liege Lord, and unfortunately, it isn't possible to get the shield, helm, or the gloves for Android and iOS users. Because of the small window of opportunity in vanilla, the fact that you need to do multiplayer to get the full set, and because you can only get the heavy armor in the mobile port, it's so few and far between. For these reasons, these are among the rarest items in all versions of Final Fantasy Tactics, and I rank it quite high on this list. For this last section, all these items are truly one of a kind in all versions, and they won't even appear as treasure chests in Rendezvous. I'm going to rank these from the worst to best, but if you're a collector like myself, I suggest getting all of these. Arguably the worst or the most disappointing staff is Staff of the Magi. You can get it on this tile right here on the 7th floor of Midlight's Deep, the Crossing. It has more weapon attack than the other staves, but it gives you no magic attack stat, making it pretty useless. Next is the Maximilian. It gives the most HP compared to any armor, but honestly, HP isn't the most important stat, as there are just ways to completely negate or reduce damage. But it's one of a kind and can be found on the 9th floor in Midnight Steep, the interstice on this tile. Although not nearly as good as hats, Grand Helm is the best helm as it gives good HP and it makes you immune to blind and sleep. It's also found on the 9th floor on this tile, and I recommend giving it to your favorite or best character who can only equip helmets. I love using it on Beowulf personally. The Cursed Ring is a pretty gimmicky accessory as it makes you immune to Traitor and it gives you undead status, but it gives +1 to your MA, attack, and speed. I don't like using it much, but I found it super useful versus the army of Argaths in an ill win, as this prevents him from using Sanguine's sword. Next is one of the best rods, Rod of Faith. It grants you Auto Faith, which bestows you 100 faith practically, and you have a chance to give faith to targets if you decide to melee with this rod. It can be found on the 4th floor of Midnight Steep, the Valkyries, on this tile right here. Now for the second to last rarest item in the game period that you can absolutely miss is the Golden Escutcheon or Scutcheon 2. This shield can be obtained in all versions of Final Fantasy Tactics, but it's limited to only one. You have a single chance to get this at the optional storyline battle in Nelveska Temple right here on this pillar. But in order to unlock this battle, you need to have done the Beowulf side quest with Rarest as a dragon, make sure they are in your party, not dismissed or killed, and it also requires you to have Mustadio on top of completing Fort Besala, where you rescue Orlando. You also need to buy the flower from Aerith at the trade city of Salgidos. If you don't have any one of these requirements, this battle will be a no-go unfortunately. This fight can be quite challenging as well, as not only Construct 7 hits hard, but the cockatrices and hydras can be troublesome, as these monsters will scale with their highest level party member. On top of this, you also need a treasure hunter and a specific monster type to jump onto the pillar. Eligible monster types are any from the Marlborough family, behemoths, dragons, hydras, or Holy Dragon Rays and Construct 8 near the pillar. You also want a treasure hunter with low bravery and at least a jump stat of 4 to be able to jump on your monster of choice to the top. I prefer Rafa for this. I like turning her into a thief or ninja, then lower her bravery a bit more with Beowulf's chicken and equip her with ribbon, chantage, and don't forget treasure hunter. I personally like to use items as a secondary on all my characters here with things like Phoenix Downs, as you will likely get KO'd many times, and softs or remedies to cure Petrify from the cockatrices. I like using Orlando and Construct 8 to help me take out the monsters, and I like using Ramza with dual wield to try and rend Construct 8's speed and power. You can also run a party of females with the ribbon and chantage combo to cheese this fight as well. Because of how strict the requirements are, where it's easy to miss even one thing, and the fact that this battle can be tough, as well as a one-time event, to me, the Escutcheon 2 is among the rarest of the rare items, as it's one of a kind, and once you complete this battle without obtaining it, it's gone forever. Finally, for the absolute rarest item is something you can only obtain in War of the Lions. It's the Tainer Rouge. If you're missing one of these characters, whether they got crystallized or dismissed, then sadly, this is a no-go. Here is how you get this insane accessory. You must have Agrias, Mustadio, Alicia, and Labian in your party roster with at least 500,000 gil and be in Chapter 4. Just a note, you can get it as soon as Chapter 4 begins to make the most use of it. Even though you need at least 500,000 gil, 50,000 will be spent on Tainer Rouge. Then you need to land on a town with a shop on Cancer 1. Cancer 1 comes right after Gemini 32, so once you're in the month of Gemini, get ready. I like going to Lasalia and Golan. It is the perfect place to get it, early, as both of these locations have shops. There are 3 towns that do not work for this: Idros Castle, Merchant City of Dorder, and Zeltenia Castle. Once it is Cancer 1, and you have all the requirements above, enjoy the cutscene, and once it is done, you have the Tainer Rouge. It gives Protect, Shell, Haste, boosts Holy Elemental attacks, and also +3 to your PA and MA. Just do not dismiss Alicia and Labian, who you get in Chapter 2. I personally use them myself, and also going to the soldier's office and finding females with the same zodiac signs and naming them Alicia and Lavian will not work. Because of the strict requirements and how it's only in War of the Lions, to me, the Tyner Rouge is by far the rarest item in FFT. Thanks so much again for watching, and I'll see you next time with more videos. Take care.